But now we're going to take a look at the origins of Hitler and the origins of the Nazi Party. So let's start by looking at the story of Adolf Hitler, bringing it up to the point at which he joins the German Workers' Party, and then we'll talk about how he turns that into the Nazi Party. So, to start with, who is Adolf Hitler? Well, he's born in 1889 in the small Austrian town of Braunau am Inn. He had an abusive father named Alois Schicklgruber, who died when Hitler was just 14. His beloved mother, however, who worshipped him, died when Hitler is 18 years old. Hitler left high school with no qualifications, referring to his teachers as absolute tyrants who were simply trying to turn people into educated apes. This is hugely ironic given what Hitler's going to do to the education system once he gets into power later on. So interestingly here, Hitler's story so far is his father shows him no affection and no love. He goes to school and basically, whilst he's very, very intelligent at school, he fails and leaves with no qualifications. His story so far is one of rejection and failure. This continues because Hitler is determined to become an artist, but in 1907 he fails the entrance exam for art school and ends up living in a hostel. The reason he fails to enter art school is because, well, he left school with no qualifications and he's not very good at drawing people. Whilst he's very good at drawing landscapes, he can't draw people. However, Hitler doesn't see it that way, blaming instead the Jews for his problems, saying that they run the art schools and they control everything in Vienna, where he's living at the time, and that's why he can't get into art school. In May 1913, he ends up homeless at this point, so in May 1913, Hitler moved to Munich due to the large prominence of Jews in Vienna. So whilst Hitler is sort of homeless from 1907 to 1913, Jews in Austrian society are prospering and doing very well. Whilst Hitler is already anti-Semitic, this just further confirms this belief. And remembering, he's not the only person that thinks this. It's a very common belief at the time. Anyway, in May 1913, Hitler moves to Munich due to the large prominence of Jews in Vienna and to avoid arrest for failure to register for military service in the Austrian army. He was found to be unfit for service in the Austrian army, but in his book that he writes later on, Mein Kampf, he would state he didn't want to fight in the Austrian army due to the race mixing in the country. He's describing it as race desecration. He says, I wouldn't fight for the Austrian army, they were race mixing. When in reality he was just found unfit for service. Hitler, however, is enthusiastic to join the German army when World War I breaks out, signing up and volunteering to fight. He's a foot soldier who carried messages and was awarded the Iron Cross for bravery, the highest award a soldier can be given. So now let's break down the Hitler story again. His own father doesn't show him any love or affection and rejects him. He then fails at school. He then fails to get into art school and bottoms out in society and ends up homeless and full of hate. Then World War I begins and he joins the army. And finally, for the first time in his life, he finds somewhere where he is accepted. Not just accepted, but is actively rewarded for who he is and what he does, winning the Iron Cross for bravery. Why is that so important? Well, because what happens then is that Germany surrender. Don't they? The new Weimar government surrender and lose World War I. So Hitler was in hospital when the news of Germany's surrender came. He did not take the news well, as he apparently states himself. He buried his head in his pillow and sobbed, not out of sadness, but out of frustration and anger that the government, in his belief, has betrayed the German army. As far as he was concerned, the army is on the verge of victory and they have been stabbed in the back. They have been betrayed by the new Weimar government. And remember, he's not the only person who thinks that. It's the belief in Dolchstoss, this stab in the back myth. So the first thing that Hitler has found some belonging and it's taken away from him, isn't it? Because obviously the Treaty of Versailles means the army will be reduced to 100,000. So when the war finishes, Hitler wants to stay in the army, obviously, because he loves it. So Hitler continued working for the army and is asked to spy on political groups around Munich. Basically, they say to him, this is a time of immense political upheaval and lots of different political parties popping up because you've got a new democratic government. So the army asked Hitler to spy on political groups around Munich. Basically, blokes in pubs getting together to talk about politics under the guise of it being a political party. One of the parties he is asked to spy on is the German Workers' Party, an anti-communist, anti-Semitic organization. Hitler goes to spy on them. However, when he hears these sort of group of racists at a table discussing their beliefs, instead of being horrified by it, Hitler actually likes what he hears, so joined within weeks of hearing their beliefs. So, at the point when Hitler joins the German Workers' Party, it's 1919, and it is called, as I've said, the German Workers' Party. It is not the Nazi Party at this point. It's the German Workers' Party. The group was established in 1919 and led by Anton Drexler. They appeal to the working class, but also have strong nationalistic tendencies, specifically opposing the Treaty of Versailles. Later on, the party changes its name. The party changes its name from the German Workers' Party to the NSDAP, or Nazi Party. In February 1920, Hitler was put in charge of Nazi propaganda and sets about rebranding the party. He organised a meeting which was attended by 2,000 people, and at this meeting he announced that the group was changing its name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis. The purpose of this name is that it's to be inclusive of all of German society, as in, national, as in appealing to nationalists, generally on the right of the political spectrum, socialist, so it appeals to the left of the political spectrum, and the German workers, and German again appealing to nationalists, and workers appealing to the left. It's a name designed to appeal to everyone, all aspects of German society. He also established the party's 25-point plan, which we'll come on to in more detail in a different video. How does Hitler grow the Nazi Party, or attempt to grow the Nazi Party? Well, the use of newspapers. He bought the Munich Observer so that Nazi messages could spread further, not just in Munich, but also try to spread them across Germany. Gaining support from extreme nationalists and anti-communists. He also finds this logo of the swastika, which he, takes and commandeers. The whole flag is red, as in to represent socialism, white, nationalist, and the swastika because it's, a symbol of power and supposed to represent Hitler's racial views. The colours, red, white, and black, represent the colours of Germany under the Kaiser, when Germany had, one strong leader in complete control, and it's an eye-catching logo. He also, another prong to his propaganda campaign is the SA, the Sturmabteilung. These were his stormtroopers, or brown shirts, set up in 1921, led by Ernst Röhm. They attracted the Freikorps, who obviously has been disbanded, or former members of the Freikorps rather, who felt betrayed by the Treaty of Versailles and the Weimar government. The SA basically at this point in 1921, in the early years of the Nazi Party, are basically thugs, Hitler's private army of thugs. They disrupted meetings of Hitler's opponents, so if you now attend communist meetings or speeches, there's a chance the SA will storm in and beat you up. And Ernst Röhm, one of the early members of the German Workers' Party, became the leader of the SA. Another important prong to this propaganda campaign was Hitler's skills as a public speaker, Hitler himself as an orator. Hitler stage managed and rehearsed his movements and speeches, and then adapted his messages based on crowd reaction to focus on what resonated most with any particular audience. So if he was speaking in an area that was more working class, he would obviously speak about more working class policies. If he was speaking in an area that was particularly anti-Semitic, he would lean into the anti-Semitic policies more, basically basing his speech on audience reaction to whip them up into a frenzy. What he would do, Hitler would, whilst he'd rehearse his movements and parts of his speeches, he'd then adapt it during the speech. What he did was Hitler would arrive late in order to build anticipation, and meticulously planned his movements and studied pictures of himself to see which poses he would stand in that made him look the most powerful. That is also why he didn't wear glasses during his speeches, because he thought it would make him look weak. The SA would then beat up any hecklers during Hitler's speeches. The other appeal of the Nazi Party during this time is the party plan. It was vague. It's designed to keep as many people as possible happy. I'll come into the party plan in full detail in another video, but if you're remembering, it's just simply a list of 25 things where it's kind of designed to please all aspects of German society. It had elements of nationalism, which appeals to everyone. Let's destroy the Treaty of Versailles. The thing that's slowing Germany's recovery is the Treaty of Versailles, so let's just destroy that. It also had elements of socialism, the idea of things being introduced to help workers and where workers would share in the profits of factories. And it also had elements of anti-Semitism for those who needed a scapegoat for the World War I defeat or who were jealous of the prosperity of Jews at this time. It also had anti-communist elements because this meant that people with money, rich people, such as big business owners, industrialists, and the middle classes would vote for, or rather would support, the Nazi Party. Because what do the middle classes and the rich fear? Communism, because it would take their wealth away. So you can see there, I will do another video covering the actual details of the party plan, but what you can see there is the party plan was designed to appeal to all aspects, all elements of German society. What that leads to, the impact of all this, very, very crucial, is that Nazi Party membership grows from 600 in 1922 to 50,000 in 1924. What's important to consider, though, is that whilst the Nazi Party membership is growing, the number of people they don't actually get many seats in the Reichstag. The number of seats taken by the Nazis in the Reichstag doesn't increase from 24 to 29 because Weimar government is recovering. So what all this leads to is an increase in Nazi Party membership, but not necessarily more votes for the Nazis.